My name is Dorothy Miller, 72 years old, and the day my children dropped me off at Sunny Pines Nursing Home, I knew I had been betrayed. Richard and Pamela promised quality care, but delivered me to a facility with stained walls, 4-person shared rooms, and a staff too thin to answer call buttons. While unpacking my single suitcase of allowed possessions, my phone buzzed. An email notification. The developers buying my beloved home of 45 years had just deposited $2.95 million into my account. My children had no idea. Before I continue my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Take a second to drop your location in the comments below. And if this story of elder betrayal and sweet justice resonates with you, please hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see how I turned the tables on my scheming children and reclaimed my dignity and independence. I'd lived in my beautiful Victorian home on Maple Street for 45 years. When Frank and I bought it back in 1978, the neighborhood was filled with young families and elderly couples who had lived there for generations. We raised our children there, celebrated birthdays, holidays, and weathered life storms under that roof. The wraparound porch where Frank and I shared our morning coffee became my solitary retreat after he passed 8 years ago, the victim of a sudden heart attack that left me a widow at 64. Our neighborhood gradually changed over the decades. The quaint local businesses gave way to trendy coffee shops and boutiques. Property values skyrocketed as developers discovered our little pocket of charm, just 20 minutes from downtown. One by one, my elderly neighbors sold their homes and moved away, replaced by luxury condominiums and townhouses that towered over the remaining single-family homes. My children seemed to change along with the neighborhood. Richard, my oldest at 53, had become a successful financial advisor with an office in a sleek downtown high-rise. His carefully tailored suits and precise manner were a far cry from the curious little boy who once collected bugs in jars on our porch. His daughters, my granddaughters Melissa and Taylor, were teenagers now, perpetually busy with extracurricular activities that seemed to prevent them from visiting their grandmother more than twice a year. Pamela, my daughter, was 49 and had built a thriving career as a real estate agent specializing in luxury properties. She had a keen eye for potential and profit, something I once admired until I realized I had become just another potential commission in her eyes. Her son Connor, my only grandson, was in college now, studying business like his uncle and mother. The first letter from North Star Development Company arrived 3 years ago. A polite inquiry about whether I might consider selling my property as part of their new Maple Street Renaissance project. I tossed it in the trash. 3 more letters followed, each offering a higher price than the last. Then came the phone calls, which I politely declined. "Mom, you could make a fortune," Pamela said during one of our increasingly infrequent Sunday dinners. She had brought glossy brochures of senior living communities. "These places are like resorts. You'd have friends your own age, activities, no maintenance worries." "I have friends here," I insisted. "Barbara next door checks on me every day. The Johnson boys from across the street shovel my walk in winter." Richard sighed, exchanging a look with his sister that I pretended not to notice. "The house is becoming too much for you, Mom. The roof needed repairs last year. The heating system is ancient. You're living in 4 rooms of a 14-room house." He wasn't entirely wrong. Maintaining the house had become challenging on my fixed income. Property taxes increased yearly as the neighborhood gentrified. Still, this was my home, filled with memories of Frank, of raising our children, of a lifetime. "I'm managing just fine," I said firmly, changing the subject to Melissa's college applications. The pressure increased over the following months. Each minor incident became ammunition. When I mentioned a leaky faucet, Pamela arrived with a plumber and 3 more senior living brochures. When I caught a seasonal cold, Richard suggested I needed round-the-clock monitoring. Sunday dinners transformed from family gatherings to strategic negotiations where I constantly defended my independence. Then came my fall. It was nothing serious. I tripped over an area rug and bruised my hip. I didn't even call my children, but somehow Pamela found out from a neighbor. Within hours, both she and Richard were at my house, expressions grave as they stood in my living room looking down at me like I was already in a coffin. "This settles it," Richard declared. "You could have broken your hip. You could have laid there for days." "It was a minor fall," I protested. And I was on the phone with Barbara 10 minutes later. Mom, Pamela said, sitting beside me on the sofa, taking my hand in hers. We love you. We want what's best for you. Lakeside Estates has an opening. It's the premier senior living community in the state. Private apartment, gourmet dining, swimming pool, art classes. Everything you love. They wore me down over the next few weeks. Constant calls, surprise visits, concerned looks, and whispered conversations when they thought I couldn't hear. Finally, exhausted by the battle, I agreed to consider selling. I have conditions, I told them firmly. I want to be involved in the sale process. And the money comes to me. It's my house, my future. Of course, Mom, Richard assured me. But let me handle the paperwork. You don't need the stress of dealing with these aggressive developers. I reluctantly signed the power of attorney he presented. After reading it carefully, it gave him authority to negotiate the sale, but specified that proceeds would be deposited into my primary bank account. I made sure of that. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind. Richard reported that Northstar had offered $900,000 for the property. Less than I'd hoped, but still enough to secure comfortable living arrangements. Meanwhile, Pamela helped me sort through decades of possessions, deciding what would come with me to Lakeside Estates. We'll store the furniture and valuables, she promised as my grandmother's china disappeared into carefully labeled boxes. My jewelry, Frank's watches, photo albums, and keepsakes. All carefully packed away, supposedly for safekeeping. I later discovered many items found their way into my children's homes, or were sold online. As moving day approached, a strange sense of unease settled over me. Richard and Pamela's visits became briefer, filled with vague reassurances about arrangements being made. Calls to Lakeside Estates to confirm my reservation were met with confusion. They had no record of a Dorothy Miller. Just a mix-up, Richard assured me when I confronted him. Everything's taken care of. I wanted to believe him. They were my children, after all. The thought that they might betray me was simply too painful to consider. So I packed my suitcase with the few personal items I was allowed to bring immediately, said goodbye to my beloved home, and climbed into the taxi they had arranged, unaware that my life was about to change in ways I never imagined. The taxi turned onto Pinewood Drive instead of Lakeshore Boulevard, and a sick feeling settled in my stomach. Excuse me, I called to the driver. I think we're going the wrong way. Lakeside Estates is on Lakeshore. Address I got is Sunny Pines Nursing Home, ma'am, he replied, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. Before I could process this information, we pulled up to a gray, institutional-looking building with a small faded sign that read, Sunny Pines Nursing Home. Pamela was waiting by the entrance, checking her watch impatiently. Mom, you're late, she said, hurrying to grab my suitcase from the trunk. We need to get you settled quickly. I have a showing across town in 40 minutes. This isn't Lakeside Estates, I said, refusing to exit the taxi. There must be some mistake. Pamela's smile tightened. This is just temporary, Mom. Lakeside had a last-minute issue with your apartment. It's being renovated. You'll move there in a few weeks. Something in her expression, a flicker of guilt quickly masked by efficiency, triggered alarm bells in my mind. But before I could question further, she had paid the driver and was guiding me firmly toward the entrance. The interior of Sunny Pines confirmed my worst fears. The chemical smell of industrial cleaner barely masked the underlying odor of urine and overcooked vegetables. The linoleum floors were clean but worn, the walls an institutional beige with scattered watercolor prints in cheap frames. An elderly man in a wheelchair stared vacantly as we passed, his call button hanging untouched on the wall behind him. Ms. Winters will get you settled, Pamela said, introducing me to a harried-looking woman in a wrinkled uniform. I really have to run, Mom. Richard or I will call you tomorrow. Pamela, wait, I began, but she was already moving toward the exit, phone in hand, her heels clicking rapidly on the linoleum. Winters led me down a long corridor to a room with 4 beds, 3 of them occupied by elderly women in various states of awareness. This is your bed, she said, pointing to a narrow metal frame by the window. Dinner is at 5:30. Bathroom is shared down the hall. She handed me a thin packet of papers. Facility rules and schedule. Welcome to Sunny Pines. Left alone, I sat on the edge of the bed, too shocked to even unpack my small suitcase. The woman in the next bed regarded me with sympathy. New arrival, huh? I'm Elaine Thompson. Been here 3 months. Kids or court order? I'm sorry. Who put you here? Your kids or the court? My children, I whispered. But there's been a mistake. I'm supposed to be at Lakeside Estates. Elaine's laugh was bitter. Honey, there's no mistake. My son did the same thing. Promised me Rose Garden Senior Villas and delivered me to this dump. Saves them money while they figure out how to get at yours. Over the next few days, I discovered the grim reality of Sunny Pines. The facility was critically understaffed, with one nurse managing an entire floor of 30 residents during the night shift. Medications were frequently delayed or mixed up. The food was institutional and bland, served lukewarm on plastic trays. Residents who couldn't feed themselves sometimes didn't eat at all. I called Richard repeatedly, but my calls went to voicemail. When he finally answered 3 days later, his excuses were ready. The renovation at Lakeside is taking longer than expected, Mom. Just be patient. Richard, this place is horrible. There's a woman across the hall who fell and waited 2 hours for help. You're exaggerating, Mom. The social worker assured us Sunny Pines meets all state requirements. Pamela's responses were similar when I finally reached her. It's just temporary, Mom. Stop making such a fuss. A week passed then too. Each day brought new horrors. A resident left sitting in soiled clothing for hours. Meals missed because the kitchen was short-staffed. Medication errors that sent one elderly man to the hospital. I documented everything in a small notebook I kept hidden under my mattress. Then came the call from Barbara, my former neighbor. She had tried my home number, then tracked down my new location through a mutual friend. Dorothy, I just drove past your house. There's a sold sign out front. The neighbors are saying Northstar paid $2.8 million for it. Isn't that wonderful? The room seemed to spin around me. $2.8 million? Are you sure? That's what everyone's saying. It was in the business section of the Herald too. They're making a big deal about finally acquiring the last property on the block. You must be thrilled. After Barbara's call, I spent a sleepless night staring at the water stains on the ceiling. Richard had told me the house sold for $900,000. Where was the rest of the money? And why was I in this terrible place instead of the luxury senior community they had promised? The next morning, I experienced chest pains severe enough that I pressed my call button. 20 minutes passed before a nurse named Lucia Martinez finally arrived. My chest hurts, I told her. I think I need to go to the hospital. Lucia checked my pulse and blood pressure. Probably just anxiety, she said, but her eyes were kind, not dismissive. Let me get you something to help you relax. She returned with a mild sedative and sat with me until my breathing steadied. First time I've seen you use the call button, she observed. Most new residents push it constantly. I've seen how busy you are, I replied, and how long it takes anyone to come. Something in my tone must have touched her because she looked around carefully, then lowered her voice. Listen, Mrs. Miller, this place. It's not good. I stay because someone needs to care about these people, but... She hesitated. If you have anyone who can get you out, call them. My children put me here, I whispered, tears filling my eyes. They lied about the sale price of my house. I think they're stealing from me. Lucia's expression hardened. That happens more than you'd believe. My grandmother went through something similar. She squeezed my hand. I can help you make some private calls if you need to. That night, listening to the muffled sobs of residents and the occasional unanswered call button, I felt a despair deeper than anything I'd experienced since Frank died. My own children had betrayed me, abandoned me in this place while they profited from my home. The realization broke something inside me, but as the tears dried on my pillow, I felt something else taking root, a cold, hard determination. I would not remain a victim. My first week at Sunny Pines established a grim routine. Wake at 5:30 a.m. to the sounds of the night shift changing over. Wait until 7 a.m. for assistance to the communal bathroom, often soiling myself when help didn't arrive in time. Choking down tasteless oatmeal while watching other residents struggle to feed themselves with arthritic hands. Long hours sitting in the dayroom under flickering fluorescent lights, watching daytime television shows I had no interest in. I lost 8 pounds that first week. Sleep became a luxury, interrupted by moans from other residents, squeaking carts in the hallway, and my own churning thoughts. A persistent cough developed from the facility's poor air quality, but my requests for medical attention were met with indifference. "Doctor makes rounds on Thursdays," was the standard response. The neglect extended to all aspects of care. Mrs. Jenkins in the bed diagonal to mine was diabetic but frequently received her insulin hours late. Mr. Cohen across the hall hadn't been bathed in over a week, the smell from his room becoming increasingly distressing. Elaine showed me bedsores forming on her heels from lying in the same position too long. I continued calling my children daily. Richard finally answered on day 9. "Mom, I'm in a meeting. Can this wait?" "No, it cannot wait. I need to know why I'm in this terrible place instead of Lakeside Estates, and why Barbara told me the house sold for $2.8 million when you said it was $900,000. A pause. "Barbara doesn't know what she's talking about. And Lakeside is still being prepared for you. I have clients waiting, Mom. I'll visit soon." The call ended before I could respond. Pamela's responses were no better, brief, dismissive, always too busy to talk. When I mentioned the sale price discrepancy, she laughed it off as neighborhood gossip. On my 10th day at Sunny Pines, I fell in the bathroom. The floor was wet from a leaking pipe that had been reported multiple times but never fixed. My hip struck the edge of the toilet, the same hip I had bruised in my fall at home. The pain was excruciating. I called for help, but 20 minutes passed before anyone came. "We're short-staffed today," the aide explained, helping me back to bed. "I'll have the nurse check on you when she's available." The nurse didn't come until the next shift, nearly 6 hours later. The following day, Barbara visited, bringing homemade cookies and newspaper clippings about the neighborhood development. "I saved these for you," she said, spreading them on my bed. "They're making quite a splash with this Maple Renaissance project. The article mentions your house specifically, says it was the crown jewel property they needed." The business section of the Herald confirmed what Barbara had told me on the phone. Northstar Development had paid nearly $3 million for my Victorian home, described as the architectural centerpiece of the planned luxury community. A quote from the CEO mentioned the premium price necessary to complete the block acquisition. "Pamela must be thrilled," Barbara commented. As a real estate agent, she must have known what the property was really worth. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Pamela specialized in luxury real estate. She knew exactly what developers were paying for properties in desirable locations. She had deliberately hidden the true value from me. Richard finally visited the next day, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than the monthly fee for Sunny Pines. He brought a small plant and a forced smile that disappeared as soon as he surveyed the dismal surroundings. "This is temporary, Mom," he said, sitting gingerly on the edge of my bed as though afraid to touch anything. "Lakeside is taking longer than expected." I studied my son's face. The face I had once kissed goodnight, had beamed with pride at his graduation, had comforted through his first heartbreak. Now I searched for signs of the boy I had raised and found only a stranger. "Richard, I know the house sold for at least $2.8 million. The Herald reported it." He shifted uncomfortably. "The papers exaggerate everything, Mom. And there were lots of expenses, fees, taxes. Don't worry about the details. I'm handling everything." "Like you're handling my placement here? Is this the premier senior living you and Pamela promised?" "You're getting confused again, Mom. We never promised anything specific. This is a perfectly adequate facility while we wait for an opening at somewhere nicer." His tone was patronizing, as though speaking to a child. "I'm not confused, Richard. I'm angry. And I want to know where my money is. Your money is safe and being properly managed." He glanced at his watch. "I need to go, I have clients waiting. I'll visit again soon." As he stood to leave, I noticed the gleam of a new watch on his wrist. A Rolex, if I wasn't mistaken. And when he mentioned Pamela's apologies for not visiting, he let slip that she was looking at vacation properties in the Bahamas. After Richard left, I sat in the day room, too upset to even pretend interest in the game show blaring on the television. Nurse Lucia found me there during her afternoon rounds. "Bad visit," she asked, noting my expression. My son is lying to my face about my house, my money, everything, I said, voice shaking with anger and hurt. And I have no way to fight back. No phone except the shared one at the nurse's station, no computer, no way to contact anyone who might help. Lucia looked around carefully, then sat beside me. I have a break in 20 minutes. Meet me in the supply closet at the end of the east hallway. The supply closet was barely big enough for both of us. Lucia pulled out her personal phone. Who do you need to call? Walter Jenkins, I said immediately. He's been my family's attorney for 30 years. Walter's shock was evident even through the phone. Dorothy? Where are you calling from? I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I'm at Sunny Pines nursing home. My children put me here while they sell my house and apparently steal the proceeds. Sunny Pines? That place has been cited multiple times by the state. And what do you mean, steal the proceeds? Richard assured me you were being moved to Lakeside Estates and would contact me once you were settled. Walter, I need your help. Can you come see me? I'll be there tomorrow morning. And Dorothy, don't sign anything else until I get there. After returning Lucia's phone, I made my way back to my room, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in days. But the feeling was short-lived. When I opened my small bedside drawer, I discovered my mother's silver locket. One of the few valuables I had brought with me was missing. That evening, using the shared computer in the day room during my allotted 15 minutes, I saw a social media post from Pamela showing her and Richard toasting with champagne. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings. #blessed #family first." I stared at their smiling faces, at the luxury restaurant setting, at the carefree celebration while I sat in a place that smelled of disinfectant and despair. Something hardened inside me. As I returned to my room, I passed Albert Sullivan, a former judge who had been at Sunny Pines for nearly a year. He used a wheelchair now, but his mind remained sharp. "Mrs. Miller," he called as I passed. "You look like a woman on a mission." I paused. More like a woman at the end of her rope. "Come sit a moment," he invited, gesturing to the chair beside him. "I've been watching you. You're not like most new arrivals beaten down, accepting their fate. You're fighting." "Not very successfully," I admitted. "Perhaps you need better weapons." His eyes twinkled. "Before I retired, I specialized in elder law and rights. Did you know that in this state, even with power of attorney, your children cannot legally use your assets for their own benefit? That's called financial exploitation of an elder. It's both a civil and criminal offense." For the next hour, Albert educated me on my rights, on the legal protections that existed even when family members held power of attorney. By the time I returned to my room, my mind was racing with possibilities. The final blow came the next morning when I attempted to check my bank account using Lucia's phone during her break. My password had been changed. When I called the bank, they informed me that Richard, as my power of attorney, had requested all statements be sent to his address and had changed the account access. I hung up, hands shaking with rage and helplessness. My children had taken everything: my home, my possessions, my money, and now my independence. As I sat on my narrow bed in that cheerless room, I reached my lowest point. But sometimes rock bottom is where you find your foundation. Walter Jenkins arrived at Sunny Pines at precisely 9 a.m. the next day, his familiar figure in a tweed jacket bringing tears to my eyes. At 68, Walter was semi-retired but still managed the affairs of longtime clients like myself. "Dorothy," he said, embracing me. "I had no idea. Richard told me you were relocating to Lakeside Estates and would contact me once settled." We sat in a corner of the visiting room, speaking in hushed tones. Walter had brought a legal pad and made notes as I explained everything. The pressure to sell, the promised luxury retirement community, the discovery of the true sale price, and my current situation. "I've done some preliminary research," Walter said, glancing at the facility staff to ensure they weren't listening. "The power of attorney Richard had you sign has limitations. It gives him authority to negotiate the sale and manage certain aspects of your finances, but it does not permit him to use your assets for his personal benefit." "But he's changed my bank passwords. I can't even access my own accounts." "That's problematic but fixable. The important thing is the house sale contract. I reviewed it before you signed, remember? It specifically states that proceeds must be deposited directly to your primary account at First National. That's standard procedure to create a clear paper trail. Hope flickered within me. So the money should go to my account, not Richard's? Exactly. The closing is scheduled for next Tuesday. Once those funds hit your account, we need to act quickly before Richard can transfer them elsewhere. Walter outlined a plan, starting with documenting the conditions at Sunny Pines and my children's actions. He had already contacted a social worker named Grace Wilson who specialized in elder abuse cases and would visit tomorrow. After Walter left, I sought out Nurse Lucia during her shift. I need computer access, I whispered. More than the 15 minutes they allow us for the shared computer. Lucia hesitated, then nodded. I can let you use the nurse's station computer tonight during the late shift. Just be quick and don't tell anyone. That night, while most residents slept and the skeleton crew of night staff made their infrequent rounds, Lucia smuggled me to the nurse's station. With shaking hands, I created a new email address that my children wouldn't know about. Then I composed a detailed email to my bank's fraud department, explaining that I suspected unauthorized access to my accounts and requesting that they flag any large transfers. I also discovered, to my immense relief, that while Richard had changed my online banking password, he hadn't thought to change the email notification settings. I would still receive alerts about large deposits or withdrawals. The next day, Grace Wilson arrived, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a determined set to her jaw. She interviewed me privately, taking detailed notes and occasionally shaking her head in disbelief. Unfortunately, what you're describing is not uncommon, she said. Elder financial abuse is the fastest-growing form of elder abuse, particularly by family members. The good news is that you've caught it early, before the house proceeds have been disbursed. Grace explained the legal protections available to me and helped me document the conditions at Sunny Pines. She took photos of the facility, noting safety violations and instances of neglect. This place has been on our watch list for years, she confided. Multiple violations, understaffing, medication errors. We've never had enough evidence to shut them down, but with your documentation and testimony, we might finally have a case. Emboldened by Walter and Grace's support, I began building alliances within Sunny Pines. Albert Sullivan became my legal advisor, drawing on his years on the bench to help me understand my rights. Elaine Thompson, who had suffered similar betrayal by her son, agreed to document her experiences for Grace's investigation. I organized a secret meeting of residents in Albert's room, where we shared information and support. Many had experienced financial exploitation by family members, but few had fought back, believing themselves powerless. Albert and I educated them about their rights, and several agreed to provide statements to Grace about the conditions at Sunny Pines. Meanwhile, Lucia helped me gather evidence of neglect, missed medications, delayed responses to call buttons, insufficient food portions. She risked her job taking photos of unsafe conditions: the perpetually wet bathroom floor, exposed electrical wiring, cockroaches in the kitchen. Walter returned with news that the house closing was scheduled for Monday, just 4 days away. He had set up a new bank account in my name, only at a different bank, with paperwork ready for me to sign. Once the money hits your original account, we'll need to move quickly to transfer it before Richard realizes what's happening, he explained. I established email alerts for any activity on my primary account and prepared a letter to my grandchildren explaining the situation. They deserved to know the truth about their parents' actions, though I took care to focus on the facts without demonizing Richard and Pamela. Grace connected me with elder rights advocates who could provide support during the confrontation I knew was coming. She also helped me draft new legal documents revoking Richard's power of attorney, which Walter would file as soon as the money was secured. Throughout this process, I experienced a profound transformation. The helplessness and despair that had engulfed me during my first weeks at Sunny Pines gave way to determination and righteous anger. I was no longer a victim but a fighter, reclaiming my autonomy one step at a time. Albert suggested an additional strategy. Pretend to be more confused and compliant than you actually are. Let your children think you've accepted your situation. It will make them less vigilant. So when Richard called, his first contact in over a week, I played the role of a resigned, slightly confused elderly mother. The place isn't so bad once you get used to it, I told him, hating the deception but knowing it was necessary. The people are nice. That's great, Mom. See? I told you it would work out. Listen, I'm handling some paperwork for the house sale. You might get some emails about it, but don't worry about any of that. I'll take care of everything. Thank you, dear, I said, swallowing my anger. You've always been so good with finances. The trap was set. All I could do now was wait for the money to arrive and hope my children hadn't found a way to divert it from my account. Monday morning I was up before dawn, anxiety making sleep impossible. Today was the day of the house closing. The day the $2.95 million would either hit my account as Walter predicted, or somehow be diverted by Richard's machinations. Everything hinged on the contract stipulation that funds be deposited directly to my primary account. At 8:30 a.m., I asked Lucia if I could use her phone during her break to check my email. She slipped it to me discreetly as she administered morning medications. My hands trembled as I logged into the new email account I'd created. Nothing yet. I refreshed the page every few minutes, ignoring breakfast entirely, my stomach too knotted with tension to eat. At 10:17 a.m., the notification arrived. Alert. Deposit of $2,952,600 to account ending in 4872. My breath caught in my throat. The money had arrived. Even more than Barbara had estimated. I immediately forwarded the alert to Walter, our prearranged signal to put our plan into action. Within minutes, Walter called Lucia's phone. The funds are in your account, he confirmed. I'm initiating the transfers now using the authorization you signed. We're moving $2.9 million to your new account immediately, leaving just enough in the original account to keep it open. How long will the transfer take? I asked, heart-pounding. It's a large sum, so the bank may place a brief hold, but I've spoken with the manager. Given the circumstances and the documentation we've provided about potential elder abuse, they're expediting it. The money should be secure within the hour. I thanked him, then checked my original bank account. The deposit was there. A life-changing sum that represented not just money but my freedom, my future, my autonomy. While I waited for confirmation that the transfer was complete, Lucia helped me monitor my email for communications from Richard or Pamela. We didn't have to wait long. At 11:22 a.m., a message arrived from Richard. Mom, don't be alarmed, but there's been a large deposit to your account from the house sale. Do not attempt to access these funds or make any transfers. This is just temporary until I can move the money to the investment accounts I've set up for your care. Call me immediately. I showed the message to Lucia, who raised an eyebrow. He doesn't waste any time, does he? Another email arrived at 11:45 a.m. This one from Pamela. Mom, Richard says you're not answering his calls. Very important that you don't touch the money that was just deposited. There are tax implications we need to handle. Call Richard ASAP. At 12:30 p.m., Walter called again. It's done. The money has been transferred to your new account, which only you can access. I've also filed the paperwork to revoke Richard's power of attorney, effective immediately. The bank has been notified not to honor any requests from him regarding your accounts. Relief washed over me like a physical sensation, my legs nearly buckling. Thank you, Walter. I can never repay you for this. No thanks needed. This is what should have happened all along. He paused. Dorothy, I should warn you. Richard called me in a panic, looking for you. He and Pamela are on their way to Sunny Pines right now. Are you ready for this confrontation? More than ready, I said, steel in my voice. I'll see you soon. I returned to my room to find Elaine watching me with concern. Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Better than okay, I told her. My children are about to discover they've underestimated their mother. I had barely finished speaking when a commotion erupted in the hallway. Richard's authoritative voice carried clearly. I need to see my mother immediately. Dorothy Miller. Which room? I stepped into the hallway just as Richard and Pamela rounded the corner, both flushed and disheveled, a stark contrast to their usual polished appearance. Mom, Richard spotted me first. We need to talk. Privately. Anything you have to say can be said right here, I replied calmly, aware that several residents and staff members had paused to watch the unfolding drama. There's been a situation with your accounts. Richard lowered his voice, stepping closer. A large deposit was made and then transferred out. We think someone may have hacked your account. No hack, I said. I moved my money to an account you can't access. Richard's face went blank with shock, then flushed dark red. Pamela stepped forward, her practiced real estate smile firmly in place despite the panic in her eyes. Mom, you're confused. You don't have access to online banking. Let's go sit down, Anne. I'm not confused, Pamela. I know exactly what's happening. I know the house sold for nearly $3 million, not the $900,000 Richard claimed. I know you promised me lakeside estates but dumped me in this understaffed, neglected facility to save money. I know about the items you took from my house, supposedly to store, but actually to sell or keep for yourselves. By now we had drawn quite an audience. Residents in wheelchairs and walkers had positioned themselves in a loose circle around us. Staff members hovered nearby, including Lucia, who stood with her arms crossed, watching my children with undisguised contempt. Richard's demeanor changed, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You have no idea what you're doing, Mom. That money is for your care. We were protecting you from scammers and bad decisions. By scamming me yourselves? I shook my head. The only bad decision I made was trusting you. We needed that money. Pamela blurted out, tears forming. Richard's investment firm is under investigation. He's about to lose everything. My real estate business is underwater since the market downturn. Connor's tuition, the girls' college funds. We were desperate. Richard shot her a venomous look. Shut up, Pamela. I looked at my children. Really looked at them. And felt a profound sadness beneath my anger. So you decided to steal from your mother? To dump me in a place where people are neglected and mistreated? While you took my home, my possessions, and nearly $3 million. We were going to move you somewhere better eventually, Richard insisted, his tone now pleading. Once everything was settled. I've settled it myself, I said. The money is now in an account only I can access. Walter has filed paperwork revoking your power of attorney, effective immediately. Richard's expression darkened. Walter Jenkins? He has no right to interfere in family matters. And you're clearly not competent to manage your own affairs. We can challenge this legally. Have you declared incompetent? I don't think so, came Walter's voice as he and Grace Wilson entered the common room. We have extensive documentation of Dorothy's mental competence, as well as evidence of your financial exploitation and elder neglect. Grace stepped forward. Mrs. Miller has filed a formal complaint regarding her treatment here and your actions in placing her at this facility, while misrepresenting her financial situation. The nursing home director, Mr. Patterson, appeared looking nervous. What's going on here? This is a healthcare facility, not a courtroom. Indeed it is, I said, turning to him. A healthcare facility with numerous violations that Ms. Wilson has been documenting. Understaffing, medication errors, unsanitary conditions, negligent care, all of which will be included in the report to state regulators. Mr. Patterson blanched. Richard looked from me to Walter to Grace, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. Mom, he said, his voice suddenly small, reminding me painfully of the little boy who would come to me when he was afraid. What do you want from us? I want what I've always wanted, honesty, respect, and the dignity of making my own choices. You took all of that from me, along with my home and nearly my future. Pamela was openly crying now. We've ruined everything, haven't we? You'll never forgive us. I looked at my daughter, at the genuine regret in her eyes, and felt the first tiny crack in my anger. Forgiveness has to be earned, Pamela. It starts with making amends and changing your behavior. We'll do anything, she whispered. Richard, always the pragmatist, had regained his composure. What happens now? Legally, I mean. Walter answered. That depends on your mother. She has grounds for both civil and criminal complaints. All eyes turned to me, waiting for my decision. In that moment, I held power not just over my own future, but over my children's as well. The realization was both sobering and liberating. I don't want to see my children prosecuted, I said finally. But I do want restitution for everything taken from me, accountability for the decisions made, and a complete restructuring of our relationship going forward. I turned to Richard and Pamela, my voice firm but not without compassion. This is your one chance. Make it right or face the consequences, legal and otherwise. The look that passed between them told me they understood the gravity of the moment. They had gambled and lost. Now they would have to accept my terms or risk losing much more than money. My exit from Sunny Pines the following day felt like a prison break. Walter arrived with Grace Wilson and a moving service I had hired. Mr. Patterson, the facility director, hovered anxiously nearby, having become remarkably accommodating since learning of the impending state investigation. Mrs. Miller, are you sure we can't convince you to stay? Perhaps we could offer you one of our private suites at no additional charge. Too late for that, I told him. But not too late to improve conditions for the residents who remain. They deserve better care than what you've been providing. I said goodbye to Elaine, Albert, and the other residents I had befriended, promising to stay in touch and continue advocating for them. Lucia helped me gather my few belongings, slipping me her personal phone number. I've put in my notice, she whispered. This place won't change, no matter what they promise now. Call me when you're looking for your next position, I told her. I think I might need a part-time health aide in my new place. Walter had booked me into an extended stay hotel with kitchen facilities and housekeeping services while I searched for permanent housing. After the institutional confines of Sunny Pines, the spacious suite felt like a palace. I ordered room service that first night, a perfectly cooked steak, fresh vegetables, and a glass of red wine, savoring every bite. The legal wheels were already turning. Walter's team filed formal complaints against Sunny Pines, documenting the neglect and safety violations Grace had photographed. My statement, along with those from other residents, formed the backbone of a case that would eventually lead to state sanctions and, ultimately, the facility's closure. As for my children, the reckoning was painful but necessary. In Walter's office the following week, I presented my terms. Full accounting of all items removed from my house, financial restitution for anything sold, and a structured visitation plan that would allow us to rebuild trust gradually. Richard and Pamela, subdued and clearly frightened by how close they had come to criminal charges, agreed to everything. The itemized list they provided revealed the extent of their exploitation. My jewelry, Frank's watches, antique furniture, and family heirlooms all taken under the guise of storage. We sold some things, Pamela admitted, unable to meet my eyes. Others are in our homes. We'll return everything we still have and reimburse you for the rest. Richard had prepared financial statements showing their dire situations. His investment firm indeed under investigation, Pamela's real estate business struggling in a cooling market. They had seen my house and assets as a solution to their problems, justifying their actions as what Dad would have wanted, and protecting Mom from herself. Your father would be ashamed, I told them quietly. He taught you better than this. The hardest conversations were with my grandchildren. I invited Melissa, Taylor, and Connor to my hotel suite individually, wanting to ensure they understood what had happened without demonizing their parents. Connor, now 20 and studying business, was the most shocked. Grandma, I had no idea. Mom said you wanted to move to a place with more care. Your mother convinced herself that was true, I said carefully. People can justify terrible actions when they're desperate. Are you pressing charges? He asked, worry creasing his young face. No, but there will be consequences, and a long road to rebuilding trust. Over the following weeks, I found my new home. A beautiful ground-floor condominium in a building designed for active seniors. No nursing care, but plenty of amenities. A gym, community garden, social activities, and security. Most importantly, it was mine, purchased outright with my own money. I hired Lucia as my part-time health aide, though I needed little actual health care. She helped with occasional errands and provided companionship 3 days a week while establishing her own senior care consulting business, which I was proud to help finance as an angel investor. The investigation into Sunny Pines gained momentum, with state inspectors finding even more violations than we had documented. Within 3 months, the facility was placed under administrative supervision, with numerous staff changes and required improvements. Within 6 months, unable to meet the mandated standards, it closed permanently. Walter helped me establish a fund to assist the displaced residents in finding quality care alternatives. My relationship with Richard and Pamela evolved slowly. Initially, our interactions were formal and supervised, focused on returning my possessions and making financial amends. Both began therapy at my insistence, working to understand their actions and the damage they had caused. Richard's firm ultimately survived the investigation with penalties, but no criminal charges. Pamela's business gradually improved as the real estate market stabilized. Both acknowledged that their financial desperation, while real, had never justified their treatment of me. 6 months after moving into my new condominium, I invited them to dinner. The first time I had hosted them since before Sunny Pines. The conversation was stilted at first, laden with unspoken guilt and lingering hurt. "I keep thinking about how differently this could have ended," Pamela said as we sat over coffee and dessert. "If you hadn't fought back, if Walter hadn't helped you, I would be languishing in that terrible place while you spent my money," I finished for her. "Yes, it could have ended very differently. We didn't deserve your mercy," Richard admitted. "Most people would have pressed charges." "You're my children," I said simply. I didn't want revenge. I wanted my family back, a real family based on honesty and respect. The road to healing was neither straight nor easy. There were setbacks and difficult moments. The first time Richard questioned one of my financial decisions, old wounds reopened instantly. When Pamela offered unsolicited advice about my living arrangements, I had to remind her firmly that my choices were my own. Gradually, however, we established new boundaries and expectations. My grandchildren visited regularly, no longer kept away by their parents' deceptions. I established education trust funds for each of them, structured so that neither Richard nor Pamela could access the money. My new life expanded beyond family healing. I joined several community organizations, including an elder rights advocacy group inspired by my experience. My story, shared anonymously at first, then openly as I gained confidence, helped other seniors recognize and resist financial exploitation by family members. Barbara and other former neighbors visited my new home, reconnecting over coffee in my sunny kitchen. Elaine and Albert, both relocated from Sunny Pines with my assistance, became regular visitors and dear friends. We formed an informal support group for survivors of elder abuse, meeting monthly to share resources and encouragement. The local news eventually covered the story of Sunny Pines' closure, including anonymous accounts from former residents about the conditions there. Though I declined to be interviewed, the resulting public attention led to policy discussions at the state level about improving oversight of nursing facilities and strengthening protections against elder financial abuse. 1 year after my children placed me in Sunny Pines, I sat in my beautiful condominium, surrounded by the possessions I had reclaimed and new treasures I had acquired, and marveled at how completely my life had transformed. The betrayal that could have destroyed me instead launched me into a new chapter, one with deeper relationships, meaningful work, and a hard-won wisdom about trust, autonomy, and the courage to fight for one's dignity. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of my escape from Sunny Pines, and I'm celebrating in my sun-filled condominium living room surrounded by friends both old and new. Barbara brought her famous lemon bars, Lucia arranged fresh flowers from our community garden, and Albert is regaling everyone with courtroom stories from his days as a judge. The Dorothy Miller Foundation for Elder Rights, funded with a portion of my house proceeds, has already helped 37 seniors extricate themselves from exploitative situations. We provide legal assistance, temporary housing, and emotional support for older adults fighting to reclaim their autonomy and dignity. Walter serves as our legal advisor, offering his expertise pro bono while training younger attorneys in elder law. Sunny Pines closed permanently 4 months ago. The owner faces multiple civil lawsuits and potential criminal charges for systematic neglect and fraudulent billing practices. Several former residents have joined our foundation as advisors, turning their painful experiences into advocacy for others. My grandchildren visit regularly now. Melissa, preparing for law school, has developed a particular interest in elder law inspired by my experience. Taylor brings her artistic talents to our foundation, designing accessible materials to help seniors understand their rights. Connor, reconsidering his business major, has been volunteering with a financial literacy program for older adults. Richard and Pamela's journey of redemption continues, with both genuine progress and occasional setbacks. Richard's financial firm survived its investigation, though he works now under heightened regulatory scrutiny. The experience humbled him in ways I never thought possible. Last month, he began teaching a free financial management course at the senior center. His way of making amends beyond our family. Pamela's real estate practice has shifted focus. She now specializes in helping seniors find appropriate housing that preserves their independence while meeting their changing needs. When she sold her vacation property, the one purchased during my Sunny Pines ordeal, and donated half the proceeds to our foundation, I recognized it as a meaningful step in her personal growth. Our family dinners have resumed, though they look different now. The power dynamic has fundamentally shifted. My children no longer presume to make decisions for me or question my choices. They've learned, painfully but thoroughly, that I remain capable and determined to direct my own life. Perhaps the most unexpected outcome has been the profound friendships forged during the crisis. Elaine and I meet weekly for coffee and theater outings. Albert has become a cherished mentor for our foundation's legal initiatives. Lucia not only helps manage my minimal healthcare needs, but has developed her own senior advocacy consulting business with my initial investment. Last week, I received an invitation to speak at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for Maple Renaissance, the luxury development built where my Victorian home once stood. The irony wasn't lost on me as I stood at the podium, addressing developers who had no idea that their purchase had nearly funded my children's financial rescue at the cost of my freedom and dignity. This beautiful development represents progress and renewal, I told the assembled crowd, which included my family and friends. But as we celebrate new beginnings, let us remember that true progress honors the past and respects the dignity of every individual, regardless of age. My new condo features a specially designed kitchen where I can continue my lifelong love of baking, an accessible bathroom that accommodates my occasional mobility issues, and a small garden terrace where I grow herbs and flowers. More importantly, it represents a home that is truly mine, not a possession to be taken or controlled by others, but the physical embodiment of my hard-won independence. Last month, my grandchildren organized a surprise 73rd birthday party for me. As I looked around at the gathered faces, family working to rebuild trust, friends who stood by me in crisis, new allies in my advocacy work, I realized that the betrayal that could have destroyed me instead gave me a more authentic life. By fighting for my rights, I discovered strength I didn't know I possessed and purpose I might never have found. The journey hasn't been easy. There are still moments when the memory of those dark days at Sunny Pines revisits me, when the pain of my children's betrayal feels fresh again. But these shadows no longer define my days. Instead, they serve as reminders of how far I've come and the importance of the work I now do. Yesterday, I received a call from a frightened 78-year-old woman whose nephew was pressuring her to sign over her property. After listening to her story and connecting her with our foundation's resources, I shared my own experience. Remember, I told her, trust should be earned, independence cherished, and dignity never surrendered to anyone. Those words have become my mantra and the guiding principle of my foundation. They remind me daily that age doesn't diminish our right to self-determination, that vulnerability doesn't justify exploitation, and that it's never too late to stand up for oneself. I wonder how many of you have faced similar situations with aging parents or grandparents, or perhaps experienced pressure from family members yourself. Have you witnessed elder financial abuse, or had to navigate challenging family dynamics around aging and independence? Please share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else recognize and address these difficult situations. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories about overcoming challenges and standing up for what's right. Share this video with someone who might need to hear this message of empowerment and resilience. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to reclaimed dignity. Remember that age brings wisdom, not diminished worth, and that it's never too late to fight for the respect and autonomy you deserve. Until next time, this is Dorothy Miller, wishing you strength in your own battles and joy in your hard-won victories.